Trump the other day did an interview with Time Magazine. It's the whole thing is just like it's Trump. It's Trump. He doesn't know anything. He contradicts himself in the interview. Nothing. It's not new, though. It's like a lot worse than his first term, because I feel like at some points he was at least adjacent to conversations held in confidence. Now he doesn't know anything about anything. So, you know, he's just kind of spitballing his answers. In our interview last year, Mr. President, you committed to complying with all Supreme Court orders. I said, what? You committed to complying with all Supreme Court orders? Yeah. When you and I spoke last April. Are you still committed to complying with all Supreme Court orders? Sure, I believe in the court system. The Supreme Court ruled 9-0 that you have to bring back Kilmar Abrego Garcia. You haven't done so. Aren't you disobeying the Supreme Court? Well, that's not what my people told me. They didn't say it was. They said it was the 9-0 was something entirely different. I can't believe it, man. When Stephen Miller, when they had Bukele in the Oval Office, and Stephen Miller, and one of the reporters said, how do you feel about the 9-0 ruling ordering you bring back Kilmar? And Stephen Miller interrupted and said, oh, no, that was a 9-0 ruling. That was a 9-0 ruling to keep him there or something. Like that was a 9-0 ruling that agreed with us. That's why he jumped in so fast. Can I get that clip again? Hold on 1 second. It's like so indicative. God, I can't believe it was only like a week ago. Here we go.
Can President Bukele
Court has the authority to
conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
and that's what the Supreme Court held, by the way, to Marco's point. The Supreme Court said exactly what
By the president like that. His country, that's is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally.
Yeah, they're sick. These are sick people. Marco, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Island, I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. Except for Venezuela, that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
and that's what the Supreme Court held, by the way, to Marco's point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual.
This was right after, this was in the morning after the 9-0 Supreme Court ruling, and Stephen Miller jumps in here. This is the first time Trump is hearing about it. Again, he's not doing his daily briefings. No one's telling Trump anything because no one cares, because no one thinks he has any authority beyond as a mascot. So Stephen jumps in to say, so Marco Rubio was saying this federal judge doesn't have the authority to order us to bring back Kilmar, right? But this is after the 9-0 Supreme Court ruling. So Stephen Miller comes in and he says, yeah, and that's what the Supreme Court ruling was about. It was them agreeing with us that we are not obligated to bring back Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He jumped in. That was the first Trump heard about it. Guarantee you. 100%. Dollars to donuts. And after that, he was really aggressive about pushing that narrative. He's the person who aggressively pushed this, that it was 9-0 in our favor. The idea, by the way, like, and if you don't think it's insincere, right? The idea that the three liberals on the court would vote in his favor on this? No, it's an obvious lie, but he's doing it to get ahead of the president here.
The Department of Justice, FBI, DEA, ATF, the U.S. Marshal Service, Customs and Border Protection, Border Patrol, and Immigrations and Customs Enforcement now have responsible, a monumental victory for President Trump. The biggest legal win of this administration so far. A total embarrassment for crazy Judge Boasberg, who's been trying to force this president to bring foreign alien terrorists back onto American soil, trying to turn our planes around, trying to empty prisons in foreign countries and bring them back to our law for the Constitution tonight. And to
is this the same legal ruling? No, I think no. Here he's referring to a different ruling. You sent me an incorrect video, and for this you will be you'll be found guilty. This is him talking about the SCOTUS ruling that undid the pause on the deportations. This is not him talking about the 9-0 ruling. Different one, different Supreme Court ruling. Whatever. It's irrelevant to the point that I was making. Anyway, that time, right here in the Oval Office, I guarantee you that was the first time Trump heard about the 9-0 ruling against him. Well, that's not what my people told me. They didn't say it was. They said it was. The 9-0 was something entirely different. Notice how Trump isn't even refuting the point here. All he's saying is that he was told something different. Like, if Trump was briefed on the collective narrative that the 9-0 ruling was in favor of his administration, wouldn't he be, like, staunchly defending that point? Wouldn't he be like, no, the 9-0 ruling was in favor of us. It said that we don't have to oblige the federal courts in requiring us to bring back Abrego Garcia. But he doesn't say that. He just says, well, I wasn't told that. Let me quote from the ruling. The order properly requires the government to facilitate Aboriginal Garcia, AI, Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador. Are you facilitating a release? Okay, listen to this response, please. I leave that to my lawyers. I give them no instructions. They feel that the order said something very much different from what you're saying. But I leave that to my lawyers. If they want, and that would be the Attorney General of the United States and the people that represent the country, I don't make that decision. Dude. I.e., I don't know what I'm doing. He's not doing anything. He's got Trump. You're not supposed to say that out loud. He's retired. He's retired, dude. You're not supposed to say that out loud. You're asked about the failure of compliance with the Supreme Court ruling. Oh, I don't know anything, and I don't make these decisions. What? You're supposed to pretend that you're the president. Have you asked President Bukele to return him? I haven't. He said he wouldn't. Did you ask him? But I haven't asked him positively, but he said he wouldn't. But if you haven't asked him, then how are you facilitating his release? Well, because I haven't been asked to ask him by my attorneys. Nobody asked me to ask him that question except you. Dude. Like actually, Jesus Christ. I don't think anything else like this is happening, certainly not in American history, but like in the world. I can't, like, this is the most open, like, he doesn't even have handlers who are prepping him on these questions. They're not even putting in the effort to make Trump think and act like he's the president. In the previous administration, even though Trump didn't have the decision-making power for the most part, they would at least, like, keep him up on the doctrine so that he could act as the president. In monarchies and in empires, this would be when the viziers or Praetorian guards killed you. Oh, dude, like, at this point, like, every single vizier would be, like, putting banana peels at the top of staircases. This is so... He's just a birthday boy. I feel like I'm doing a poor job of communicating how severe this is. This isn't just he's old or senile or incompetent. He's all of those things. It is that the administration and Trump both are not putting in any effort to convey the impression that he isn't those things. The president is admitting that he is not acting as the president, that he does not act with the office and the authority and the duties of the president. Like, it's not, there's not even a pretense. Yeah, but nobody cares anyway. Yeah, isn't that like the scariest part? Isn't this what the conspiracy theorists freak out over? Like, this is the reason why they're obsessed with the idea that there's a big master plan, a bunch of like crazy people controlling the world or whatever. Isn't it way scarier that the most powerful country in the world is nominally controlled by a person who is openly admitting he has no power, and it's not even getting discussed in the news? Like, this is the tenor I want I want everyone to be taking. It's not just that Trump is bad. There are lots of bad presidents. Most presidents have been bad. It's not just that he's crazy or evil. Again, see previous presidents, okay? This is completely unprecedented. It's in the emperor has no clothes moment. It's the emperor has no clothes, and he's admitting that he has no clothes, and no one in his court is pretending that he has clothes, but nobody's acknowledging it. Like, at least in the emperor has no clothes dynamic, there's a shared understanding that everyone can recognize the king has no clothes, and it's the king himself is delusional. In this case, we're all just bumbling along. We're pretending. The only reason this country still exists and hasn't descended into, like, a Mad Max-style Road Warriors anarchy is because our institutions are trotting along through inertia alone. There is no one at the top. There is no cabinet of neocons or, like, evil competent people running things. It's literally just private equity people, you know, speculative investors pulling out the copper wiring. That's it. The only reason the house is still standing is because they need the house to stand to get at the copper wiring. It's too much of a pain in the ass to get at the copper wiring after the foundations collapse. The problem with your country is that you don't have any real opposition to this. You know what? I actually think that's true, yeah. This is an unironic, like, failure of Darwinian evolutionary mechanics, right? This is what happens when you don't have any opposition. In any previous society, at any previous point in history, if an empire was led like this, we would be swallowed by our enemies. We would collapse and our ruins would be picked apart by our neighbors. Every other kingdom around us would go, wow, ripe for the picking, let's go. That doesn't happen anymore because we have nukes, because the global economy is so intertwined, but we deserve it. Oh, we deserve it. We deserve it. Core countries of empires actually mostly survive long term. Yeah, but they lose ground. Why aren't we losing Wisconsin? We should lose Wisconsin at the very least to Canada. Like, we should be losing ground. New Mexico should just rejoin with old Mexico. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The closest America gets to a competitor is China. Yeah, and China's the good guy in this situation. So, you know, that's the hope, right? The hope is that China uses this opportunity to take as much ground as possible and that we, you know, perish. It's the only fair thing, frankly. There's no parallel to what America is right now. There is no equal to the level of willful incompetence and, like, anti-reality bias. There's no equal to it. I can't think of a Roman Empire equivalent. Well, usually if your king is crazy, you still have competent generals and administrators and viziers and you know, so on and so forth, but that's not even... Anti-intellectualism nowadays doesn't exist the way that it used to. You know? Anti-intellectualism in, like, the fascistic sense is a very modern phenomena. You have to have an enlightenment, you have to have capital R rationalism for people to ideologically reject rationalism. Irrational people who believed in very irrational, unprovable things back in the, I don't know, Middle Ages or whatever, didn't believe it because they were rejecting rationalism. They believed it because they had a doctrine they were adhering to. I don't know, man. It's pretty bad. Do you think this kind of rejection of reality can ever be solved or gotten out of? Yeah, with, like, a cultural revolution. Maybe. Just written, Lily Creme. It's just written. The whole thing is incredible, by the way. I don't want to go over the, like, again, Trump doesn't know anything. So the only thing that's interesting in the interview is the shocking, like, lack of you know, the effort that has been put into making it seem like he knows anything. The Holy Roman Empire had a century of practically no real ruler, and they still kept on chugging. But you don't understand what I'm getting at here. And society was a lot more federalized back then because they didn't have, like, telephones and shit. But it goes beyond that, man. The whole administration is like this. We're not talking about one guy at the top missing a seat. Like, the fact that there's no pope doesn't mean the whole Catholic Church collapses. This is worse than that. Okay, but besides a cultural revolution, which I think is unlikely, what do you think might need to happen? No, I think that's what needs to happen. That's the point we're at. We're full in. We're committed, okay? We're locked in. Buckle your seatbelts. I'm sorry. I don't think there's any way out of this. Nazi Germany only ended because it was bombed into rubble. Like, if they didn't start World War II but persisted as an empire, or what if they won, or what if they reached a stalemate, you know? What if they made it to Stalingrad and the shores of France and then just held that territory for years and years? What ends that besides a collapse? Who's going to bomb us? Well, I didn't say we need to be bombed. I said we need a cultural revolution. Economic collapse also seems like a viable possibility, but we're not Pete Buttigieg is not going to show up and, like, fix all of this, okay? This is so blackpilling, dude. I mean, that's what it's the historical, it's the cycle, okay? That's how it is. It is what it is. The Chinese Cultural Revolution was very fascistic in nature. No, God, no. It was like the least fascist thing in the world. It was extremely authoritarian. It wasn't fascist, though. Not even a little bit, but still good for accelerationists, right? Well, accelerationists are people, and we're all going to have to suffer. You know how many gay people got lynched during that time? Yeah, I do know. That's not fascism. They were lynching gay people back in the Middle Ages. They hadn't invented fascism yet. Stop defending cultural revolution. I'm not defending cultural revolution. Well, don't get prissy, all right? Two sides of chat are attacking Vosh for opposite points. Yeah, I noticed. It's easy to talk about this when you're not starving to death or being shipped off to an offshore gulag. I don't understand why. Like, it's this weird blend of like contrarian edgelords and people who think I'm being a contrarian edgelord. Okay, I don't think a lot of people. I don't think they understand, like, because okay, it's only been a few months and the treats from China are still like more or less in stock. This is almost irreparable. We're dealing with a level of political rot that is unrivaled in the world, and it's in the biggest and most powerful country in the world, and there's no signs of it being repaired anytime soon. The main political opposition to what is happening right now, the Democrats, aren't even capable of naming the problem. They can't even identify. They don't even have the language to describe the underlying nature. They think it's about corruption. It's not about corruption. They think it's about authoritarianism. It's not about authoritarianism. These are symptoms. There is a greater cause here. There's a greater cause and a more fundamental set of problems. And even if the problems were as simple as they thought they were, you can't just convince people out of it. You can't argue a person out of being authoritarian or irrational. It doesn't work that way. They don't understand the problems. They don't understand the solutions. And even if they knew what the solutions were, they don't know how to get people towards those solutions. They don't know how to uproot the root cause of the problems. They don't know anything. So I'm not trying to be contrarian or edgy or whatever when I say stuff like we need a cultural revolution. What I'm essentially saying is that I don't know how we get out of this, but it would need to be very transformative. It would need to be, it goes so far beyond whatever you think would need to happen, probably more than that. Now, we might be able, in the meantime, to get these middling little half measures. But for me, progress isn't just, well, what if we got 4 years of Pete Buttigieg? And Pete Buttigieg, like, all of the underlying problems stay there, but Pete Buttigieg makes the oligarchs calm down a little bit, and like ICE calms down with the deportations a little bit, you know, like that. But then in 4 years, what happens? Trump 2 comes in. Stephen Miller runs or whatever. And this isn't even to speak of the climate crisis, man. That shit is getting accelerated. We're already surpassing the most pessimistic timescale for stuff like ocean level rises, water temperatures, global temperatures. Every year, the hurricanes get worse and more frequent. And the Trump administration's response to that is doubling down on every single practice you could engage in. Yeah, the insect die-offs. We're going to have millions of acres of crops that won't be properly growing because the soil culture is just gone. Like, the soil culture can't sustain the nutrient-hungry, genetically modified crops that we've made. The bees aren't going to be pollinating the damn flowers. This is all going to happen within our lifetime. Pete Buttigieg is not going to fix this. So when I say stuff like a cultural revolution, I'm acknowledging the fact that, like, the scope of the solution will need to be as dramatic, if not more so, than the scope of the problem. And the scope of the problem is really big. Unfortunately, fixing things is usually more complicated than breaking them. You know, it's pretty easy to provide a materialist explanation for why we are where we are now because it's already happened. But when you talk about solutions, you're talking speculation. You're talking about a more complicated process. Fixing things, it's harder than breaking things, you know. And there's no historical parallel to what we're going through right now. Not a real one, anyway. Not one that really encapsulates or describes the scope and severity of the problem. So isn't it possible to make tiny drones to pollinate the plants? Get this guy to Ukraine. Get this guy and his big ideas to Ukraine. Yeah, Vosh is anti-animal agriculture, which is what helps restore the soil. Lamau, this is directly a problem of crop agriculture that can only get worse with less animal agriculture. Yeah, man, I'm sure that, like, the 50 million chickens that die a day in grinders, or like the chicken coops where they're packed in so like close that they can't move or flap their wings. What are you shadow boxing over? What do you have? Just have your hamburger. We're not even talking about you right now, you f***ing carnivore. Why are you bringing it to? Oh yeah, man. It's actually vital to the soil culture that we dedicate 70% of our arable land to growing wheat and hay so the cows can sit in like steep shit and we can inject them full of antibiotics that are slowly cultivating the next super virus to kill all of us. Like somehow this protects the soil? What are you talking about? Get out of here. Jesus Christ. Do you think it's the duty of the world to take action in whatever fashion against the US in the fight against climate change? I mean, what does one even say to this? Well, I'll tell you what I say to this. I say people who think I'm being edgy when I say culture revolution, you really think there's a painless solution to this? You got to understand, man, like these statements are being uttered by people who have known climate change is a thing for 60, 70 years collectively as a group, and they know it'll kill all of you, and they're fine with it. They're completely fine with it. They welcome your death. So you're saying vote blue no matter who becomes obsolete in the current state of the system? No, you should still vote for the least bad candidate. Where do these people come from? Everyone wants to make it a damn debate. Everyone wants to fight. Are there any lovers in chat? We have too many fighters.